The next speaker, flash up the photo of him. This is a man that I often and regularly refer to as the Wizard. I first had the pleasure of meeting him a couple of years ago from another ice hockey injury. Well, no, I didn't meet him then. I met him as a result of mutual friends, but another ice hockey injury which he managed to fix me in a very short period of time. I had a subluxury of hence calling him the Wizard. He is an incredible human being with an incredible heart, a huge passion for personal development, and this guy is the real deal. He truly is the real deal. He eats, sleeps, breathes what he's going to be talking about this evening. He has, well, I won't give away too much, but he is a phenomenal person. So can we please give a huge round of applause to Chris.
Hello, good evening. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you for such a wonderful introduction, Will. I've actually been a member of the Elite Network since the very beginning, since even before there was an Elite Network, since Will was giving small presentations in a local parish hall in Springfield. So I find personal development very important. Since being here since the very beginning, I find personal development hugely important in that in the same way our phones and our iPads and our apps need updating every couple of weeks, the reason they update every couple of weeks is that they develop glitches, or the world around the app changes, and the operating systems of our minds do the same. So I think we just need to just have this incoming input of podcasts and books and networking events like this, where we're just changing those wires in our mind, changing that operating system to be more positive and do the things we know to be good for us. Now, in my day job, I'm an osteopath, and I've been working for 10 years or so, a bit more than 10 years now. And I have the real pleasure and real luxury of treating people from all walks of life. I treat literally professional athletes who are some of the fittest people in the entire country, and I treat people in very poor health, and I treat everybody in between. And in the 10 years that I've been working, I've really started to notice that there isn't much that separates the very fittest people in the country to the most unhealthy. That there's not much that separates them as a person. The thing that separates them from being very fit or very unhealthy is just the things that they do consistently over time. Just their habits. And in the last few years, I've started my own practice. I've been running that for just over 3 years now, and our team is growing. And being someone with quite a strong growth mindset, in anything that I do, I learn and throw myself into it. So I've joined Will's 10X group, where I go to a mastermind once a month. I read a lot, listen to a lot of audiobooks, a lot of podcasts, read a lot of blogs about business. And in the last few years, same things happened. I've started to pay attention to those who are very successful and those who are less successful, and they are not better. The more successful people are not better than me, they're not better than you. They just have done the right things consistently over time. It became that simple. That's my observation, at least. It seems that our life is the sum of our habits. And the life I'm living now, the life I want to live, is the sum of the things that I do consistently over time. Excuse me, my darling 18-month-old son has gifted me with a cold today, so I might be kind of a bit hoarse as the talk goes on. But hopefully today, what I'd like to share is just how to recognize the bad habits in your life, how to ditch them, how to build the good habits and be consistent with them over time. So, who here has heard of Simon Sinek and seen his talk Start With Why? It sounds like a good place to start, but I actually think there's a bit just before that. And I was actually quite interested that Mark hit on this as well. So, something that comes just before starting with why is needing to understand your personal values. Having read a lot about personal development, you see values come up a lot. However, for a long time, I didn't really put much effort into figuring out my values. I thought the whole concept of it was quite wishy-washy, in all honesty. I thought we all had the same values. Who doesn't value their family? Who doesn't value their health? I kind of thought it's all the same. kind of what's the point? That was my perception of it. Until I realized that values should be broken into two components, there's two constituent parts. They should be broken into their principle, and then they should be broken into the quality of the value. So the quality is like how it manifests day to day. What does it look like on the ground? And that's where it suddenly became a bit clearer to me, and that's where I started to put pen to paper. So as an example of this, if I value truth, and I'm trying to find the truth in my profession and my work and truth in reality around me, the quality of truth is just being honest. I need to be honest to myself and be honest to my people around me, to the people around me. So that's how it manifests on the ground, just paying attention to my honesty in my own mind and the things that I say and the actions I take. If I value integrity, which is one of those big value-based words that I always thought was quite wishy-washy, the quality of integrity is doing what I say I'm going to do in the time frame I said I was going to do it. Just stick to that. That will make me an integral person. And that's what how I hope people to behave with me as well. So it's something I pay attention to. I obviously value health as a person, but also my job. But I've started to recognize that there are different qualities of health. So when I was younger and a young man, the quality I valued was aesthetics. So I got into bodybuilding as a young man and cared how big my arms were and went to the gym a lot and pumped iron. And over time, I've started to care a lot less about that because I noticed that when I cared about aesthetics, I actually couldn't move. I got injured all the time. And now I very much value that quality of movement and freedom in my body. So that dictates the habits that I build. The habits I build now, rather than going and pumping iron, I'll spend a lot more time stretching and flowing and moving and focus on quality movement as opposed to lifting iron because I've got rid of that value. And I've also started to notice that I prefer the quality of wellness over fitness. So as an example, I used to do CrossFit 6 days a week, and I was by far the fittest I've ever been, but I'd wake up every day feeling like I'd been hit by a truck, and I just couldn't move. So I was fit, but I didn't feel well, yet now I train, I'm fast enough, I'm fit enough, I'm strong enough, but I'm not as fit, but I feel well. And so focusing on the qualities, putting pen to paper, the important thing is that that will then dictate the habits that spawn from that. I'm just going to share a little story. It's very easy in life to become numb to things. I was opening the door to my clinic just a few weeks ago, and as I was putting the key in the door, I looked down and realized that a key on the key ring had been there for 2 years while the door didn't exist. The door was in a landfill site, or it had been recycled. We had changed the door, but every day I opened the clinic and that key was just there, and I ignored it for 2 years until one day I looked down at it and thought, why is that key still there? I had become numb to the key. And in a fast-paced life, when we are just bombarded with information, it's very, very easy to become numb to things. We become numb to the stuff in our life, the stuff in our houses. We become numb to the activities that we do each week without thinking. We become numb to even the people in our lives. And when the stuff, the activities and the people, when they're not congruent to your values, that's when it starts to lead to unhappiness and frustration and resentment. So it's important from time to time, just during those moments in your day, to take check of the stuff, the people, the activities that you're doing. Check that you haven't become numb to them and that they are congruent with your values, so you know that you're going to be living a happy life, not an unhappy, frustrated life. I'm going to tell you another story. I stole this, by the way, what I'm about to tell you. I stole this from a book, and I want everybody in this room to steal this from me, because it's amazing. So on the 7th of February, 2017, so last year, I was reading a book called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And on the 7th of February, I was reading a passage in the book where he was saying that he wrote a gratitude journal for his wife for a year and presented it to her on her birthday. And I thought, all right, well, 7th of Feb, it's nearly Valentine's Day, I'm going to do that. So I went out that day and I bought a journal and I wrote day one that day, And I continued to do that for 1 year and 7 days, and I gave it to her Valentine's Day this year. Now, if you write a nice sentence or a nice paragraph in a card for your partner on their birthday or on Valentine's Day, it's a nice thing to do. They're like, oh, it's so sweet, thank you. And whereas if you write that same 1 or 2 sentences, a paragraph or 2, every day for a whole year, what you end up with is a sobbing wife. It was amazing. So I don't tell you this story just because it's cute. I tell you because there are 2 important lessons. So the first lesson is, who can tell me what that is?
Growth.
Growth? What kind of growth? Yeah, exponential, or another term for it would be compound growth. So exponential growth, but they're kind of the same, they are the same thing. So if I wrote one sentence or a paragraph in a card, it's a nice thing to do. The actual journal, I ended up filling 2 whole big journals when I gave it to my wife. It took a lot of writing. There is no way I could have sat down in one go and written 2 huge journals of stuff. But if I just did one little bit a day, I think some days I just wrote a sentence, a few words. Some days I was in the flow and I'd write a couple of paragraphs, a few pages sometimes. But every day it felt okay, it felt pretty easy. What you end up with over time is a sobbing wife. and like I say, I really do want everybody in this room to steal that idea from me because it was just so powerful. It'd be more difficult to do if you're in the room with your partner, but because she didn't know about it the whole time. This is how habits work. So when we do small things consistently over time, you end up with very powerful things. The unfortunate thing is true the other way around. If you've become numb to something and you're doing something that isn't congruent to your values and you're doing something maybe negative, over time that can become very powerful the bad way. And I see this a lot in my clinic. So someone will come in to me, they might be 40 or 50, and they come in and they might have a pain related to something they're doing at work. And they come in and say, I've been doing it the same way for 20 years. I'm like, that's the point. Nothing really happened for the first 10 years. And then nothing really happened for the next 5 years. You got a bit tighter and stuff, and then all of a sudden they're in pain. And it takes a long time for some of these things to take effect. But if you're making the positive changes and you're using the positive habits, then really, really powerful things happen. The other lesson that came from that story is, you may have noticed that in the book, the chap did 1 year, and I did 1 year and 7 days. The reason I did 1 year and 7 days is that the window of opportunity to take action on a good idea is very small. If I thought, oh, it's Valentine's Day next week, I'll buy a journal and I'll start writing for 1 year within 7 days' time, I wouldn't have done it. It would have just got lost in my brain. It would have got lost in the bombardment of information we get every day. The window of opportunity to take action on a good idea is very, very small. If you know there's a better way to be living your life, you need to start today. Life is too short not to be doing the things you know to be good for you. However, it's scary, isn't it? And where on earth do you start? And sometimes it's really difficult to start these good habits. So where do you start? Where you don't start is by needing more discipline or needing more willpower. It's human nature to look at the people around you and to look at someone who is doing the thing that you want to be doing and think, oh, if only I had their discipline, if only I had their willpower, I would be like them. But it's been proven by science and stuff that discipline and willpower is a myth. It is not true. It is true, but it's finite. It will run out eventually. It does not matter who you are in the world, a top CEO, and your willpower will run out. What doesn't run out is habit. Habits are subconscious things that we just do each day. When was the last time you moaned about going upstairs and brushing your teeth before bed? You don't moan about that. You just do it because it's a habit. And we need to form these good things into a habit, and we need to get to the point where our bad things are no longer a habit. There's another myth around habits, and I used to say this a lot to my patients. It takes 21 days to build a habit. It doesn't. Science has shown that it actually takes, on average, 66 days, very specifically, to build a habit. So, and that's an average, and it changes slightly on you as a person, and it changes slightly on the habit you're trying to fix. So I would say, aim for 3 months. You can do anything for 3 months, and as Will kindly pointed out earlier, from now, that's till Christmas. So you can do anything until Christmas, and then the thing that you're trying to do will have been set in your mind as a process, and it's a habit. You don't have to think about it anymore. It becomes easy. But how do you take that first step? The first step is always the most daunting and can often seem the hardest. So if day to day, bear with me, need a bit, there we go. If day to day our motivation ebbs and flows, sometimes we feel like we're rocking it, some days we don't. If when you're trying to start your new healthy habit, you choose a level, you kind of measure success, the level of activity that you choose to start at requires this much motivation, today you're going to smash it. But the next day, if you're a bit hungover, or you slept badly, or the kids are causing chaos at home, your habit suddenly seemed quite daunting. You hit it the next day, just about hit it the next day, having a good streak, but then all of a sudden an unexpected bill comes in, work gets busy, you've had an argument with someone, and for the next few days, you're not going to make it. So to take your first step in any new healthy habit, you need to set the bar so low that you just can't say no. Now, as an example, if you were, say, had an idea of writing a new blog or writing a book, if you said the blogs that you read have got hundreds of posts and the books I love reading are 100,000 words, I'm going to write 500 words a day, and in a year I'm going to have my blog sorted, or I'm going to have a book written. On the good days, 500 words doesn't actually take very long. So you'll smash it out in 10 minutes, you'll feel good about yourself. But on the bad days, suddenly 500 words seems really daunting. If you said to yourself, however, I'm just going to write 1 sentence a day, that's my yardstick of success. You can write 1 sentence a day, even if you've had a massive argument with someone at work, the kids are running riot, you've had the bill come in, and it's all just gone to pot. You can still write 1 sentence a day. Because the thing is, the habit is the most important thing. It's not the 1 sentence a day. Once you've done 1 sentence a day for 90 days, it will feel so natural to you to wake up in the morning, to make a cup of coffee, to put your fingers on the keyboard and just start typing. The habit is so much more important than the words. So make the barrier to entry so low you can't say no. Excuse me, my voice. But that's how we get into the good habits. How do we break the bad habits? Let's choose green. First of all, you need to, we will go back to Simon Sinek here, understand why. Why do you choose to go to the negative thing? There are a few kind of main reasons for this. Stress is a big one, anxiety is a big one, and boredom are big ones. So just kind of paying attention to the kind of the thought tree in your mind, and recognize that there are actually triggers that lead you regularly and consistently to go to a negative behavior. Understanding why is the first step. That neatly leads us on to what to do next, which is to replace the bad habit with a good one. And you want to replace the bad habit with something that tries to fill the whys. So despite, as an example, despite being someone that cares quite a lot about health, my own health and other people's health, I can smash a family-sized bar of Cadbury's in less than 90 seconds. I can demolish it. So I recognized that I was doing this far more regularly than I should be. So, and one of the reasons potentially was actually just a bit of boredom and after dinner in the evenings, and I have now replaced a family-sized bar of Cadbury's with an apple. So my hands are doing something, I'm getting crunch and texture, and I'm getting a little bit of sweetness, but it's so much better for me than about 600 calories of sugar. So replace the bad ones with a good one. You'll all understand this, especially in a room like this, but make yourself accountable. There are two types of accountability. One is internal accountability. Not many people are very good at sticking to internal accountability, but some people are. If you are the sort of person that says you're going to do something and you like to hold yourself accountable, you're probably the sort of person that likes to build a spreadsheet about it, make a sticker chart about it, and put this up in your kitchen, tick it off every day, give yourself that little dopamine kick, and don't let yourself break the streak. That's good. Stick with it. Most people prefer external accountability. So if your, for example, bad habit is going to the pub and you want to swap that for going to the gym, make sure you get a gym buddy. If you're trying to lose weight and you're trying to make dietary changes, make sure someone else is on board with you. And it really helps if they live in the same house so you can cook the same stuff. But if that's not possible, then just find someone where you can check in weekly and make sure you're holding each other accountable. The next one, and get creative with this, is to plan for roadblocks. Do this with a pen and paper. That's super important that you put pen to paper. Get creative in that you need to think of every single possible thing that could go wrong with this new habit. So if you're trying to lose weight and you're changing up your diet, think about when it's a colleague's birthday at work and they bring in cake. Think about when it's your birthday and someone gives you cake. Think about the kids' birthday parties. Think about Friday evenings and you've had a tough week. Think about all those things that could possibly go wrong, and what are you going to do about it? What are you going to say when someone gives you a cake on your birthday? And what's your way out from this predicament? Once you've figured it all out, put a celebration in the diary so that when you succeed over a period of time, you know what goodies are coming your way. Now, the celebration should take you deeper into the habit. If your thing, like mine is chocolate, if your thing is cake, your celebration should not be a cake. Your celebration, it should be something like a nice chef's knife because you've been spending so much more time in the kitchen cooking healthy food. It could be lunch in that slightly too expensive organic juice bar that you never normally go to, but you're going to treat yourself that day for doing so well with your habits. So that's kind of how you break the bad ones. Once you've broken the bad ones, you're bringing in these good ones by having a really low kind of starting point with what you do. How do you make the habits stick? Now, if I'd have actually brought my prize today, there's a book that I really like called High Performance Habits by Brendan Buchard. And one of his things is recognizing that in our day, there are lots of transitions. We transition from talking to a colleague, to talking to a friend, to talking to a family member. We transition from writing an email to talking over the phone. And we transition from being in work mode to being in family mode and home mode. And something that can be really helpful to make you perform optimally and effectively in each of these environments is having triggers. So as an example, at work, if I'm writing an email, I want to be efficient and I want to be quick to the point, and use the brushed steel on my wrists of my MacBook to, as I slide my hands onto the keyboard, that's a trigger for me. And I'm in email mode, I'm in writing mode, I'm efficient, I'm fast, to the point. Then, if a colleague asks me a question, I sound silly, but I slide back out. I'm back in the room, and I'm in the moment talking to that person, and I'm not worrying about the email because I've transitioned out of the email. I'm not kind of half thinking about it, half talking to them, I'm talking to them. I'm trying to be a good colleague, trying to be a good osteopath to my patients, and I'm hopefully in the room. I also, when I get to work, have a different keyring for work, and that's a tactile thing for me, that when I'm opening my clinic door, I'm going to have a good day that day. I'm in my work mode, and then when I get home, I've got a different keyring, and I open the door, and I'm a dad. And having these tactile things that we can use as a trigger can help us transition in our mind to become effective and optimal in each thing that we do that day. Earlier I spoke about celebrating, and the celebration I was talking about should be done every month or every week or every few months, depending on the thing that you're trying to do, but also really celebrate the little wins. In your mind, just start to rewire those neural pathways. Every time you don't do the bad thing or you do the good thing, talk to yourself in your head and say, well done, and realize that you are becoming the person you want to be. You're rewiring that brain of yours, and you're building those habits that are going to create the life that you want. Really do talk to yourself and give yourself the little wins. I think one of the most important things in making a habit stick is learning to love the process and recognizing that the process is so much more important than the goal. Now, excuse me. I think most people here, and certainly me, we're probably quite goal-oriented, being into the personal development world, quite like to set goals and like to set big goals, and I'm all for that, by the way. But once you've set the goal, you almost need to forget it. You almost need to let it just fade into the background, because from that point on, it's all about the process. As an example, I used to be a really keen runner a long time ago. And then when my first child was born 3.5 years ago, I just stopped exercising completely. And I had all the excuses, too tired, no time, blah, blah, blah. And I started to bore myself after a couple of years. So at the beginning of 2017, I thought, right, I used to love running. I enjoyed it a lot, got me fit. I'm going to start running again. And actually, I'd never broken 20 minutes for a 5K. That's going to be my goal. This year, I'm going to break 20 minutes for a 5K. So that was January 2017. I had this new goal, and I remembered how much I used to love running, and I got this runner's high, and it felt like I was flying, and it felt like I could run forever. And I went for my first run, and it sucked. It was so bad. Everything about it was bad. It hurt. I didn't get the runner's high. I was so slow. And not only was it just physically horrific, but it just also showed me how much less fit I was than where I used to be, and how far I had to go to achieve my goal. So what happened was I didn't run for a month. And I thought, no, I gave myself a real talking to. I thought, this is ridiculous. Go out and run again. It'll be fine. Ran a second time in February, and it sucked just as much. And I didn't run again for a few weeks. So March came by, and I thought, this really is ridiculous. I'm going about this the wrong way. Because each time, because I had a goal of running a sub 25K, I was running 5K. My barrier to entry was way too high. So I set my barrier to entry much lower. All I wanted to do was run 3 times a week, no matter what. That's the process. Get rid of your judgment, your expectation. Just go out and run. If it sucks, it sucks. And what started to happen after about 3 weeks was I got better. And I did start to get some of that runner's high. And my time started to come down. And then all of a sudden, rather than making excuses to go running, hang on, which way around is it? When I was making excuses and I was going, oh, I can't go running, now I'm making excuses, right, I've got a 20-minute window, let's go running. And I'm making excuses to run as opposed to not to run. So learning to love kind of the hard bits and just go into the process as opposed to trying to achieve the goal is how you're actually going to end up achieving the goal. We are, however, human, and sometimes the habits break and we kind of fall out of the good habits, even though we've spent the 90 days getting there and we've set the barrier to entry to really low, and we've applied all these principles. Sometimes we break them. So what do we do in those situations? First of all, don't beat yourself up. Every single habit since the dawn of time that's ever been started has been broken at some point. Do not beat yourself up when the habit breaks. I would go, the first step is to go right back into your values. Really ask yourself, why are you doing it? And why does it matter to you? And why does it matter to the people around you? What impact is the habit going to have, not just on you, but on those around you? Secondly, really then double check that your measure of success is low enough. You will be amazed at how low you have to go to really make sure you get it done every time you say you're going to do it. But put it that low, but so lower than you can possibly imagine, because it is the process and the habit that's more important than the thing. Once you build the habit, the thing will happen. And another lovely strategy that I like to use, I'll do it here actually. Is never let yourself break 2 days in a row. So if you fail one day, that's okay. Life happens. Even if your goal is just to write one sentence a day, life does happen. We'll let you off. But just don't break it 2 days in a row. Make sure you get it. Or if, like me with my running, my goal was to run 3 times a week, just make sure you don't break it 2 weeks in a row. So if I ran twice in 1 week, I have to run 3 times the next week. And in order to help me with that, I'm just going to really make sure that barrier to running is low. I'm going to run 100 yards down the road, and that's me done for the day. Obviously, if you run 100 yards and you want to keep going, but the barrier to entry is low. So, hopefully, there's a nice clear little run through there. Start with your values, understand why you're doing what you're doing, and then start with a low barrier to entry for the good ones, for the bad ones, replace them, make yourself accountable, and gradually over time you're going to start forming this life that you want to live and build the life that those around you have and that currently doesn't seem possible. So if you want to connect in any way, I'm Chris Branch. You can find me easily on Facebook with that mugshot that Will put up earlier. And I like to connect. So I also run a 30-day habits Facebook group. It was a thing that happened completely accidentally, actually. I wanted to swing a kettlebell 30 times at 300 times a day last October. And I put it out on Facebook, and it turns out 70 people wanted to do the same thing. So we started a group. And then each month since then, we've done different habits. So we're currently doing a cardio month where we're running or swimming or cycling. We've done meditation and healthy eating and minimalism and all sorts of things. So if you wanted to join a group, add me as a friend or try and find the 30-Day Habits Facebook group, because we just focus on some of this stuff for 30 days and change the habit each month. But it's been a real pleasure talking to you. I think I finished a bit early, so I have time for questions if anyone has any, but thank you very much for having me.